Hello and welcome to That's a Wrap, a roundup of movie news from the past week. I'm Joe Kohle. Here's what we're working on for you today. I will be joined by writer and podcaster for the Entertainment Awards website Next Best Picture, Gio Lago. We will discuss the news that music superstar Bad Bunny will be taking on his first leading role in a film. We will also be doing a preview of the BAFTA Film Awards, which are happening on Sunday. And later, we will share our thoughts on some movie trailers that dropped this week, including the official trailer for the upcoming Star Wars film, The Mandalorian and Grogu. So let's now bring in writer and podcaster for Next Best Picture, Gio Lago. Gio, thank you for joining us again. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Glad to be back.
Yeah, but first, I just wanted to mention that there is some construction happening on the floor above us. So if you hear random noises throughout the show, that's what that is. So apologies that is happening. But yeah, just wanted to flag that. So let's begin today with the king of Latin trap taking his talents to the big screen. Bad Bunny is set to star in the historical drama Porto Rico. It will be the rapper and singer's first leading role in a film. Bad Bunny previously had supporting roles in 2022's Bullet Train and 2025's Caught Stealing. Puerto Rico will also star Edward Norton, Javier Bardem, and Viggo Mortensen. According to Variety, the film has been described as an epic Caribbean Western and gripping narrative inspired by true events about Puerto Rico's origins. Gio, you are Puerto Rican?
Yeah, very biased here.
You are a fan of Bad Bunny. You are obviously a massive film fan, so I assume that the combination of all of these things makes you excited about this.
Yeah, it's I think it's being directed, written by also another musician, Residente. So, first-time director.
Renee
a little
Perez
concerned
Joglar.
A little bit concerned on that front, but I mean, that ensemble, I'm in. I'm good for a Caribbean Western in the back end of the 19th century. Why not? Sounds cool. I'm very biased again. I just want a preference. Like, this is especially my lane. But I think, yes, there's a lot of material ripe in terms of Puerto Rican history that, many people do not know about, especially let alone in America. And I think it's fascinating to see that finally be given the grace to be worthy of a story on the big screen. I think it's going to at least be handled with a care and respect. So on that front, I mean, I'm in.
Yeah. So do you think that Bad Bunny's performances in Bullet Train and Caught Stealing make you think that he has the acting chops to be front and center in a film in a lead role?
That's actually fascinating because both of those roles are just two action movies where it's purely vibes and he's a supporting role. And he perfectly understands those wavelengths. There was a film he starred in a few years ago with Gael
Garcia Bernal.
Yes. Sorry, I butchered it. And it was a wrestling film, and I'm blanking on the title. I remember seeing that at Sundance, and, he has a small role in it, and he is really good, and it's very gentle, dramatic work. In terms of seeing him in a leading role, new challenge, but, I mean, this is the guy who just won Album of the Year. He's just performed the halftime show in the Super Bowl, and it's a top 10 performance, I think, that show's history. It's just another challenge on the list for him to tackle. So I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure he could do something really special with it.
Yeah, I was just going to mention those things. This all comes after he made history earlier this month as the first Spanish language artist to win Album of the Year at the Grammys for Debí Tirar Más Fotos. He, of course, also recently, like you said, headlined the Super Bowl, which was his performance was very cinematic. And many have pointed out that there was a dolly shot that seemed to draw inspiration from Spike Lee. So he's clearly a fan of cinema. This is all very exciting. It's definitely a good time to be Bad Bunny. But meanwhile, this week we also got new details about the next film from legendary filmmaker Martin Scorsese. According to Deadline, Mads Mikkelsen is officially joining Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence in What Happens at Night. Patricia Clarkson will also have a role in the film. The movie is adapted from the ghost story novel of the same name. Will follow a married American couple who travel to a small, snowy European town to adopt a baby. This marks the first Scorsese film for both Lawrence and Mikkelsen, the seventh feature directed by Scorsese to star Leonardo DiCaprio. It's the second Scorsese film for Clarkson. She had a role in Shutter Island. Gio, first, what do you make of this cast that Scorsese is putting together? And second, many film fans consider Scorsese's late career works to be masterpieces, myself included. Do you think this film has the potential to match that same level of quality?
I mean, it's Martin Scorsese, you know. That's the one guy you're never going to bet against. I think his late-stage career alone would inspire envy of any filmmaker. I think a stretch of going from, like, Wolf of Wall Street and Silence and The Irishman and Killers of the Flower Moon alone, like, anyone would kill to have that 5 in their filmography.
Yeah.
That being said, you know, it is fascinating that this film, I think in the wake of Killers of the Flower Moon, which was this big epic,
maximalist,
you know, $200 million production, 3.5 hours. I think that really
took a lot out of it.
I hate to say it, you know, I mean, he's not young.
Scaling
he's 80-something. Yeah, and I think, you know, with What Happens at Night, you know, you mentioned Shutter Island and Clarkson's involvement. I think this is going to be around that wavelength, and I think it's going to be far more intimate. I know they start shooting next week. Yeah. So we are getting a Martin Scorsese movie. I mean, the fact that DiCaprio is actively talking about this project, he doesn't really promote films that he doesn't believe are actually happening, which gives me credence to why I hope Heat 2 is actually a real thing. Yeah. But, you know, with this and seeing, you know, 7th go around with Martin Scorsese, that's just, I had the same sentiment when Killers of the Flower Moon came out in theaters. Like, this might be one of the last times we could say we're seeing a Martin Scorsese film in a theater. I hope to say the same thing again. I know this is an Apple production. They are pretty solid in terms of what they deem theatrical releases compared to other streamers.
Yeah, for the success
Mads Mikkelsen. Yeah, exactly. Like, that movie made $600 million in Best Picture nomination. And I think with this, you know, Mads Mikkelsen also in the mix. I think is a very fascinating actor to run around that Scorsese roundtable. So I'm very intrigued. I have not read the novel. I don't know much about it besides the synopsis. I'm kind of going to go in blind. But I think with Lawrence and DiCaprio as a pairing, I far prefer this compared to the Sinatra stuff that's been floating around as a rumor.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously their second film they'll be starring in together after Don't Look Up, which was, you know, got some mixed reviews, even though it ended up doing well at the Oscars. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them doing well with Oscar nominations, got a Best Picture nomination. But I'm looking forward to seeing them together in a Scorsese movie. Definitely looking forward to this film. But yeah, so let's now talk about someone else that I'm a big fan of, Bill Hader. He is heading back behind the camera for his next project. According to Deadline, the Emmy-winning actor and director will write, direct, and star in They Know, a new horror film set to begin production this spring in Los Angeles. The movie is based on an original idea Hader created with Duffy Boudreau, who was a writer and co-executive producer on Hader's HBO series Barry. Hader and Boudreau are also childhood friends. Deadline says the film will follow a divorced dad who grows suspicious that his ex-wife is secretly dating a mysterious man who is having a strange influence on their children. Gio, for Barry, Hader won 2 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series. He also won Outstanding Directorial Achievement in a Comedy Series 3 times at the DGA Awards. So he obviously has found success working both in front of and behind the camera on the same project. Do you think that will continue with this feature film?
I think it's the thing we've all been waiting for since Barry ended, especially with that final season, which, while I thought was pretty good, felt like Hader was quite over it. He was like, I'm ready to move on. I got what I got out of it, and I completely understand that. And I remember him talking recently when Eddington was coming out with Ari Aster about trying to get this project off the ground and talking to a longtime producer who he's friends with about reading whatever the film was. If this is the same film, I do not know. But just saying, like, this will not happen. Like, this script is bananas. I don't know who's going to want to produce that and front the money for it. Yeah. I don't know if this is the same thing. I don't know if he worked on this stuff. I can't remember if I saw a rumor recently that Linda Cardellini is going to be attached to this project, which would be very, very fascinating of a pairing. I'm all in. Like, I think Bill Hader's direction in Barry was so good. I thought he should have won the Emmy for that season 3 episode, The Highway Chase.
For Best Director in a Comedy Series.
Yeah,
Crazy.
and that's saying something considering how brilliant his performance was also, but his direction, I think, especially in the later seasons when he took up the mantle full time, really showed that he has a very unique eye.
Yeah.
Is it mainly translated just from television directing to film? We'll see if that, transition lands. Sometimes it works better for some than others, but he's a weird guy. Barry had some odd moments, and I think if he's going all in on it with that concept that just sounds already very much pretty out there, I'm in. I think this is gonna be cool.
He's obviously a massive cinephile.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like any interview you watch with him, you can realize what knowledge he has about film and the history of film. He has said in interviews as well that it was his dream as a kid to be a movie director, and that it was not his original goal to be an actor and a comedian. He moved to LA in 1999, started working as a production assistant on different films with the goal of directing one day. But then started doing improv at Second City. That's how he ultimately got cast on SNL after he was discovered by Megan Mullally, actually, who saw him at an improv show and recommended him to Lorne Michaels. So it's awesome that he's finally going to be directing a film after wanting to do so for so long. And because of his love and appreciation for cinema, I think he's going to cook up something special. So I want to turn now to the British Academy Film Awards. They are happening on Sunday. After the Oscar nominations were announced in January, I spoke about how I think we now have a real race for Best Picture between One Battle After Another and Sinners, and the BAFTA nominations only reinforced that. They both received the most nods. One Battle earned 14 nominations overall, just 2 shy of the all-time record. Sinners earned 13 nominations. But in an article published this week, Chief Awards Editor for Variety, Clayton Davis, called the BAFTAs an unpredictable 3-horse race between One Battle, Sinners, and Hamnet. Hamnet received 11 nominations, as did Marty Supreme. Final voting for the Oscars takes place between February 26th, which is Thursday of next week, and March 5th. So the voting begins just a few days after the BAFTAs. Gio, Clayton Davis said that in his piece that the results from the BAFTAs could, quote, spark a late-breaking surge that could reshape Oscar night. What do you make of his opinion about this being a 3-horse race between the films that I just mentioned? And with Oscar voting coming so soon after the BAFTAs, do you think the results could influence the way in which Academy members cast their ballots?
No. It's this thing where, BAFTA does like to take pivots. I mean, you saw last year, best film, if I'm not mistaken, Conclave won, albeit in a year where it was a bit mishmashed on what we deemed the front runner. Because at one point we we're like, oh, it's Honora. And you're like, no, it's The Brutalist. Oh, it's Conclave. And then by the time Globe. Yeah. And then by the time the Academy came, we were just like, oh, it was Denora. We were just overthinking it. They loved Denora. It's really One Battles to lose. I think PTA is winning director. He won DGA. The Oscar is his. I think there's not going to be a 1-for-1 at what happens at the Academy compared to what will happen at BAFTA. So say, for example, whatever wins original screenplay for like sentimental value could win. Europeans love, that type of international feature, very moving. If that won original screenplay here, I still think Ryan Coogler is going to win in the Academy because that's more of their wheelhouse. They like representing big original ideas. The film being this massive hit with the Academy overall 16 nominations, the all-time record. There's going to be some deviations. Like best casting is a category that at the Oscar or the BAFTA and actually the Oscars, because it's their first year, we have no idea what they go for. Every year with BAFTA, it's like, okay, sure, just throw a dart. It could be, Marty Supreme. It could be One Battle. I think Hamnet possibly trying to take the best picture film away from One Battle, hypothetically, at BAFTA does not affect anything in the Oscars. It won't inspire some late surge. It's One Battle's year. I think we are just incredibly bored. This is the same thing that happened to Oppenheimer, where there's a clear definitive front runner and it just starts sweeping every award show, and people are coming up with all kinds of situations for certain races that feel pretty cemented. There are things that could change. I think races that are still very open to supporting actor, especially with SAG, someone like Stellan Skarsgård. Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't help him. And if he loses BAFTA to say someone like Benicio del Toro or Benicio wins SAG, that completely switches it in his favor. Or Lordy winning both completely. So that stuff like that's in a race. Supporting actress, until Tiana Taylor seals the deal, that isn't really locked in. There's some stuff in flux, score, cinematography. Not score because I think Ludwig's got it, but cinematography is a category that has been all over the place this year. I think BAFTA is going to be a key to seeing what translates the Oscar compared to splits at the British Society, Critics' Choice. So we'll see. But in terms of the overall grand picture, it's one battle's year. I think, people said that after Golden Globes when Hamnet won, they were like, oh, his hand is this really a race? And then Sinners got the nominations, and then we switched to the same narrative, but for Sinners. And I think maybe if, One Battle wasn't here, it would be Sinners' year. I think Sinners would pull it off. But unfortunately it is. And it's PTA, and he's never had a Best Picture winner, and it's a very timely movie, especially with everything that's happening on in this country. It's winning. It's one battle's to lose, so...
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. I tend to agree with all that.
Yeah.
We have now less than a month until the Oscars, right? March 15th.
March 15th, yeah.
I'm very excited to see how this all plays out. But let's now shift to some very sad news from this week. Hollywood mourning the loss of an acting great. Oscar-winning actor Robert Duvall has died. His wife says that he passed away peacefully at his home surrounded by love and comfort. Duvall's career spanned 7 decades. He starred in films like The Godfather, Part 1 and Part 2, Apocalypse Now, The Conversation, Network, The Great Santini, and The Apostle, which he also directed. He won the Academy Award for Best Actor for his performance in Tender Mercies. Robert Duvall was 95 years old. This past week, we also lost actors Eric Dane and Tom Noonan, as well as documentary filmmaker Frederick Wiseman. It's been a tough week. Gio, I know that this may be difficult to do in just a few minutes, but can you attempt to speak about Robert Duvall's remarkable 7-decade career and the legacy he leaves behind as one of Hollywood's true acting giants?
Yeah, it's, I was just recently listening to The Big Pick, and they were talking about Duvall. And I think, someone like Sean Fennessy describes perfectly. He's just encapsulates everything that's utterly American in terms of an American actor. I think also the way he's able to maintain an intensity, whether he is baked in silence or he is yelling, is something that was just both like not a challenge for Duvall as a performer. And I think that it's hard to see, especially with that era of new Hollywood actors, with Hackman and him and Diane Keaton, especially for the male actors, we don't, especially in today's Hollywood, build films around an actor like Robert Duvall. We don't get a Gene Hackman leading films. These are guys who have hairlines and they're balding, and they just are not hunky superstars. But they have the talent, they have the charisma, they have the screen presence. And I think with Duvall, it helps that being a background guy on a majority of Coppola's works in the 70s is just how you solidify yourself in some of the all-time great movies. And honestly, it was unreal, in retrospect, thinking of how they didn't pay him to be in Godfather Part 3, because he should have been. But, just The Conversation is an all-time personal favorite of mine. Apocalypse Now, should have won the Oscar that. He won for Tender Mercies, which is a very Oscar bait performance. He's just one of our greats. And I think it is that sad thing we talked about off camera, where we're getting to an age where as we start getting older, a lot of these legends of this period and this phase of Hollywood are just going to start, unfortunately, passing one by one. And it's tough. So, it was a great 93 years of life, a great 7+ decades of talent, where even still stuff he popped in.
He was 95,
in the past
right?
2 decades. Yeah, that's unreal. That's just great to see. Even in his later work, he's still doing stuff like Widows.
Yeah.
Which, brilliant supporting performance. And whatever you say about the film, The Judge, not the biggest fan, Duvall does his thing.
Yeah.
And that he was one of a kind talent, especially with all the other names you mentioned. You know, it's like Frederick Weissman, I thought was just a brilliant filmmaker who was able to make the mundanities of life and every little facet just so equally as fascinating. And Tom Noonan was incredibly spellbinding. And Eric Dane, I mean, one of the iconic TV performances in McSteamy, like so goated that like he gets his own catchphrase nickname that will forever live in his TV greats. And even with stuff he did like in Euphoria, like these guys all the way to the end were putting out great works. So, you know, it's going to be a shame to miss all that, especially Duvall. It's been a tough week.
Yeah. Yeah, so there were tributes across Hollywood this week for Duvall, including from Adam Sandler, Viola Davis, Michael Keaton, as well as Duvall's co-stars from The Godfather Part 1 and Part 2, Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. As you mentioned, The Ringer's Sean Fennessy, he called Duvall one of the most complex and ingenious actors of the new Hollywood, which you just mentioned, an era in Hollywood from the mid-1960s to the early 1980s. Also, like you mentioned, his generation of actors includes Dustin Hoffman, Gene Hackman. I loved reading that the three of them were apparently good friends
roommates
during the early days of their career in the 50s and the 60s. It says on Wikipedia that the three of them lived together in New York City at one point, but I did some more research, and it seems like the three of them never all lived together at the same time.
Yeah.
Hoffman lived with Hackman first, slept on his kitchen floor in 1958, but it was just for a few weeks until Hackman eventually arranged for Hoffman to live with Duvall in an apartment on 109th Street and Broadway. Duvall and Hoffman also apparently later shared an apartment on West 22nd Street. This is all covered in a Vanity Fair article titled Before They Were Kings from 2004. Also covers their early struggles as aspiring actors before they became big stars. There's also an interesting quote from Hoffman in the piece that talks about how they all saw themselves as theater actors who were focused on the craft rather than finding success in Hollywood. Movie stardom did not seem like something that was going to be in their futures, which is very fascinating considering that they all ended up being three of our greatest film actors ever. Hackman and his wife, of course, both passed away last year. Hackman died on February 18th of last year, so almost exactly 1 year between his and Duvall's death.
Yeah.
As you said, it's very sad that many from this generation of actors are starting to leave us, but yeah, their work and their legacies will obviously live on forever. So, so that's it for this portion of the show. I want to go to break. Coming up, Gio and I will share our thoughts on some movie trailers that released this week, including the official trailer for The Mandalorian and Grogu. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm still here with writer and podcaster for Next Best Picture, Gio Lago. It's time now for Picks Preview, where we put the spotlight on the hottest new trailers and teasers that dropped this week for upcoming movies. We begin in a galaxy far, far away. On Tuesday, Disney and Lucasfilm released the official trailer for The Mandalorian and Grogu. The film is a spin-off of the Disney Plus TV series, The Mandalorian. The new footage comes after a 30-second TV spot for the film aired during the Super Bowl, which faced some backlash because it didn't seem to show anything about the movie itself and instead felt like more of a spoof of classic beer or truck commercials, along with Pedro Pascal returning as the Mandalorian, also known as Din Djarin. The Mandalorian and Grogu will also star Sigourney Weaver and Jeremy Allen White. The project will be the first Star Wars movie since 2019's The Rise of Skywalker. With this movie, Lucasfilm is pivoting back to theatrical films after mainly focusing on Disney Plus TV shows for the past few years with projects like The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Andor, which ruled, Ahsoka, The Acolyte, and Skeleton Crew. Star Wars Starfighter, starring Ryan Gosling, will release in theaters on May 28th of next year. Lucasfilm also has several other Star Wars films in development. Gio, after The Rise of Skywalker received mixed reviews from critics and was considered a disappointment among many Star Wars fans, do you think The Mandalorian and Grogu will put Lucasfilm back on the right track when it comes to the future of theatrically released Star Wars films?
No, it does not look good at all. I don't know what was a more surprising thing to me watching this trailer, the fact that Pedro Pascal is actually on set again, or B, that Martin Scorsese is a plushy little alien guy who has the same eyebrows. All but which guarantee I will still watch it.
Yeah.
But it seems like a sad reminder of where Star Wars is about to go. You know, this is kind of the end of like Bob Iger's time at Disney, where he's like, okay, I want to end it on this note. I want to get a Star Wars film in theaters. Kathleen Kennedy is leaving Lucasfilm. Dave Filoni is going to be the creative head. While I do not know the name of the person who's in charge, we'll cover the business. A very DC studio situation they have, like with James Gunn. And all that tells me is that Andor was just really the last great Star Wars thing we're ever going to get. It's done. It's a wrap. It's just going to be a lot of, you know, member berries and Filoni pulling out random characters from his animated series to smack around like action figures, which we see in this trailer, because there's literally a bounty hunter that I can't even remember the name of, but with the giant hat. And it's kind of like, oh, we killed Cad Bane in one of these TV shows no one watched. Let's pull another one out. And, you know, you're making a film that looks like a TV show that practically has to have 5 seasons of television explanation to understand what's going on. It seems like more it's a vibe thing. It's probably going to be more oriented for kids. It also seems like the most uninterested I've been in Star Wars in some time. And it's pretty sad. Pretty sad to think about.
Yeah, so you mentioned The Mandalorian and Grogu will release amid a new era for Lucasfilm. A longtime president, Kathleen Kennedy, stepped down last month. And
I think so, yes.
Lucasfilm veteran and co-creator of The Mandalorian, as you mentioned, Dave Filoni, and Lin-Wen Brennan were named the new leaders of the company. I wouldn't have known that either if I didn't have it written down. Kennedy did an exit interview with Deadline last month that received a lot of attention. She talked about ongoing projects that remain possible for the studio's future. She spoke about a potential future Star Wars film from Taika Waititi and a Donald Glover Lando project. She also commented on The Hunt for Ben Solo, a film that was axed by Disney and would have seen Adam Driver return as Ben Solo, also known as Kylo Ren. Steven Soderbergh would have been the director. He developed the project with Driver. And in an interview this week with BK Mag, Soderbergh spoke about the scrapped film, saying, quote, "I'd kind of made the movie in my head and just felt bad that nobody else was going to see it." Maybe one of the saddest sentences.
That's the worst. What studio head hears that and just doesn't think, I need this green like this?
He said, "I thought the conversation was strictly going to be a practical one. Where they go? What is this going to cost? And I had a really good answer for that, but it never even got to that point. It's insane. We're all very disappointed." It was Driver who first revealed in an interview with the Associated Press in October that Disney CEO Bob Iger and co-chairman of Disney Entertainment Alan Bergman said no to the project. Driver said that Lucasfilm loved the idea, but that Iger and Bergman told him that they didn't understand how his character could be alive.
Oh, my God. Yeah, somehow Palpatine's returned, but
yes,
Kylo Ren.
They brought back many dead characters in the past. Driver's revelation led to many Star Wars fans taking to social media at the time to share their frustration. Gio, this all seems to suggest that there may be a disconnect between Star Wars fans and Disney leadership over what the future of the franchise should look like. So first, what do you make of Soderbergh's recent comments? And second, this is a bit of a leading question. Does this entire saga make you concerned about the next era of Star Wars films?
I mean,
what
era? Yeah, sure, but like Dave Filoni's in charge. Like, what era of Star Wars films? They like the tradition is they announce a movie, we hear no updates about it, and then it's either gone canceled or it's in some sort of limbo. We were supposed to have the Pilot Squadron movie by Patty Jenkins. The Taika Waititi movie was supposed to happen. Boba Fett movie by James Mangold, that's dead. This movie that you just mentioned that we didn't even know of in production, or at least pre-production ideas of Soderbergh, Adam Driver, team up. All these things have just Rian Johnson's whole trilogy that was supposed to happen after. It seems like The Last Jedi was just a moment that broke everyone's brains at Lucasfilm and them adhering to the worst of the online fandom of Star Wars, and frankly, people who don't understand how stories or films work. And then also having to deal with studio executives that are scared and they want to make money and they don't know what to commit to. And like you mentioned, there's just this disconnect.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to wrap up anytime soon. I think until this trailer for The Mandalorian and Grogu, I don't think I knew a single person who was into it besides being like, well, Grogu's cute. Like no one, like no zero hype. This was one of the most.
It seemed to be that this new trailer
pick up a little, but it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good compared to this is a franchise that is one of the most storied things in all of it. What call it film, call it IP, whatever the hell you want. This is a thing that Star Wars was the biggest deal. I think you can remember when Force Awakens was coming out, how much of like, oh my God, like we have to like line up at the theater.
There was a dude, right after college, I delivered pizza, and there was a guy who worked there who we watched that trailer together, and he started crying, a grown man.
Yeah. It was such a like cultural, it was such a cultural like touch point to now see that Star Wars isn't like the giant series that is like the mainstay of our cultural consciousness anymore. Even Marvel's kind of faded away from it. So it's kind of like this limbo of what should reign like supreme. And I don't think Star Wars is going to reclaim that throne anytime soon. I would love to be wrong. I would like to see Star Wars films in theaters, but like when you devalue the magic of it because you make TV shows, that's what happens.
Yeah, Driver said he loved the Hunt for Ben Solo's script. He called it the standard of what a Star Wars movie should be, compared it to The Empire Strikes Back. He said it was one of the coolest scripts that he had ever been a part of. So yeah, that's very upsetting.
I hate hearing that.
I wanted to talk about the Peaky Blinders movie trailer. I wanted to talk about Toy Story 5. Don't think we're going to have time. Quickly, are you excited for Peaky Blinders?
Oh yeah, big Peaky Blinders fan. Cillian Murphy, I think Tom Shelby, one of the all-time great television protagonists. I'm in. I don't think it's going to be perfect. I think it'll be a very fun TV movie, but him versus Barry Keoghan, I'm in.
Yeah. All right. So coming up, Wuthering Heights topped the box office this past weekend and now looks to hold onto the number one spot in its second weekend in theaters. Gio is going to share his thoughts on the film. That's after a quick break. Welcome back. Writer and podcaster for Next Best Picture, Gio Lago, is still here with us. I want to end the show today by getting your perspective on a film that is currently in theaters, Wuthering Heights. It's entering its second week in theaters after a strong debut at the box office. The new adaptation of the classic novel opened at number one over the President's Day weekend, a four-day total of $37.5 million domestically, and $83 million worldwide. That's according to final numbers released by the studio on Tuesday. As it begins week two, the film has now grossed about $94 million globally. According to Deadline, the movie is expected to earn around $14 million this weekend. Gio, we both saw the film on Friday last week, a week ago today. I wanted to get your perspective because you have read the book twice. Yes, and because unlike my guest from last week, Next Best Picture owner and editor-in-chief, Matt Neglia, you were not a fan of the film. So I wanted to get an alternative perspective. What were the biggest issues you had with Emerald Fennell's adaptation?
I mean, if we're going to not even just dive into the nitty-gritty of just accuracies of the novel, or at least try to match the essence of the novel, I'm fine with filmmakers or writers trying to take their own creative spin on liberties unless it captures the essence of Bronte's work or just whoever they are adapting. That being said, I think Wuthering Heights just buckles under the pressure of its own like erotic subversions it's trying to create. It's trying to be an incredibly edgy movie made by a filmmaker who's been very much deemed a quote provocateur, but nothing of the film is either provocative or racy or frankly erotic. It doesn't do what it sets out to do and even actually just discontinues it and just goes for a very sappy melodrama of romance that is just very underbaked. And I think especially when there's a one-sided infatuation with someone like Jacob Elordi compared to Margot Robbie, and then when you get into the nitty-gritty of, you know, certain ethnic specificities of the novel and details that are taken out, I think it subtracts a very unique dynamic between these two characters and makes for an incredibly bland outing. Look, I get Fennell's trying to make it as a giant romance. That's what, you know, most iterations of this film have been promoted as, especially since William Wyler's in 1939, as a grand sweeping romance. That's really not what Wuthering Heights is, and I just figured, you know, at least in the big 2-6, we would have a filmmaker with actual, you know, courage or curiosity to not even just do the first half of the book, but the second half, and to, you know, expand upon it more than besides like a swooning romance for the ages, and they're a little mean to each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all is fair, and I appreciate your perspective. I thank you for giving it to us. But yeah, so that's all the time we have for today's show. Thank you for joining us, Gio. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so that does it for today's edition of That's a Wrap. Stay tuned for more on Pixel 11 Plus throughout the night. I'm Joe Kohle. Thank you for watching.